What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and we're back with another tier list. Of course, we're at the end of February now, and the global anniversary has hit. It's only the initial wave of the global anniversary. We do expect there to be more celebratory events surrounding the celebration to come out, so of course this is going to be a little bit different as when we get to like the end of March. Things are going to be changing, I think, a little bit in terms of the characters that we're going to be talking about today, but this is last month's tier list as it was left, and we'll see if there's going to be any changes, of course, but there are a bunch of new characters we need to talk about. We've got Hancock, the super evolution of Rayleigh, Blackbeard, Jesus Burgess, and the newly introduced Hawk. So we're going to talk about all these guys. Let's have a look at the tier 5 list though, but before we do that, we need to talk about my own, criteria that I have for these tier lists. So overall, there is going to be the power of the unit, so how much damage can they do, the speed of the unit, how fast do they clear content, and how reliable are they at clearing that content. Is there content out there that they cannot clear due to the restrictions and limitations of the character's design, and how usable or versatile is the unit. And I always talk about this, but if a character is used on teams where the character isn't even boosted by the captain, that obviously means you're using that character for a very specific purpose, meaning that character is going to be very good. So all of these things in mind, now we can start talking about the tier list. So looking at characters in tier 5, now we've got to think about the characters that released during this month and what kind of changed. So we had a little bit of buffs for Cerebral Free Spirit, I guess a pseudo buff for Slasher here, and then Driven Powerhouse stuff, and then I guess the Driven Slasher stuff. So a little bit of Slashers, a little bit of Cerebral Free Spirit, a little bit of Driven, but honestly, I don't see too much here immediately that jumps out like, hey, I use this character and he was really useful for a decent amount of content this month. In terms of Rumble, I mean, obviously this is not a very specific Rumble tier list, but definitely some of these characters are pretty usable in Rumble. But we'll move on up to tier 4. Kuzan's still a big fan of this guy, with level limit break, and you have his like max potential captain effect. He's really freaking good to have. Douglas Bullet, not really that good. Snake Man's still solid. Quick Whitebeard is still a very good unit. I tried building a team with him, but I couldn't get the team to work exactly. I did actually use V2 Katakuri to beat PKA level 100 of Kobe. That was dope. He has Katakuri has really good synergy with Blackbeard, so I kind of like him. I think Katakuri's still a solid unit, but he's only really good when you get level limit break on him. Without it, he's just kind of average. He's kind of meh. The rest of the character's not really that great. Kind of want to bump Ein down, to be honest. Like, I really don't ever use Ein for anything. I think Shiki's the best unit here so far. Vivi is pretty solid still. Law is still usable for sure. I'd say Law's probably the most usable here. He's really good. I mean, like, Shirahoshi Manshiri is still very good too, so I'll bump her up. But anyways, not really too much here in tier 4. Let's move on up to tier 3. I mean, Bon Clay still incredibly useful to have. V2 Shirahoshi Manshiri probably a little bit better than Nami and Robin 6+, even with level limit break, I think. Croc Dofi probably needs to be bumped down a little bit just because they just don't really see that much play. They're kind of mid. Same with Green Bull, honestly. Green Bull is just... He's not a good character. The superclass condition on this guy is god awful. I don't know why they made him require 2 of his listed characters. It just makes him so much worse. Lucy is still very good. King Queen, Sanji Judge, they're all pretty solid. I think Corazon and Law, very underrated unit, and then this guy as well. Capone Crew saw a little bit of play this month with Blackbeard. Very, very nice unit to have. Moving on up to tier number 2. Got some good units in here for sure. K-Dad and Chopper, very, very strong. Momonosuke, I kind of want to bump him up a little bit too. I kind of want to bump him up just because he keeps needing to be used. He's just a very good special. V2 Shanks saw a little bit of play this month as well, still pretty good. Bonnie, I still haven't got this character yet, but I just don't think she's going to see that much play. She's got an okay special for utility, but the weakness effect or the weakened status that she can inflict to the opponent is just... It doesn't really need to be used, honestly. It's kind of like a meme, and it's just a nice bit of weight for her to get additional damage, but it's just kind of whatever. It's just like, it's a small buff. I don't think it's that important, honestly. Jack is still good. You got Izo. Izo's kind of mid, honestly, compared to some of the other like shooter captains that you can use, honestly. Final Tap Kid, Odin, Blackbeard. I mean, this Blackbeard's still pretty good. I kind of want to bump this Blackbeard up a little bit just because he works really well with the other Blackbeard, with the new one that just came out. Doflamingo definitely got a bit of a buff as well. I think I'm going to bump him up a little bit. He's really good still. We're going to move on to tier 1. So we've got Lilith at the top of tier 1. I unfortunately didn't use Lilith at all during the month of February, aside from just the extended events that came out when she released, and of course the treasure map. So yeah, didn't really need to use Lilith all that much. There just hasn't been enough content to really warrant using her. But I think that she's still a really, really good unit. You know, the double stacking attack boost. She's a speed farmer, essentially. Great final tap, which is very, very good for her if you can get it maxed out. Nami Karina, I think she probably needs to go to the top of this tier. Carrot Wanda just consistently sees play. Sabo is good. Rayleigh Gaban consistently sees play. Halloween Ace consistently sees play. Hiyori consistently sees play. Probably even more so than Carrot and Wanda. Jinbei, Robin and Jinbei continuously sees play. I think this Robin and Koala is a super underrated unit. I kind of want to bump them up a little bit. We've got Luffy, Ace and Blackbeard, Whitebeard and Blackbeard versus unit. This unit is still really good. Ace and Akainu is getting a little bit dated now, but they're still a very good unit because they synergize well with so many units, which really, really helps them out. I think Sai Yamato's probably better than Kid in my opinion, and then that's okay. And then we'll move on to tier 0. So I guess we can also include the top 5. So this is like the tippity top. Honestly, not too much really needs to change from this listing. I do feel like I want to rank these guys a bit higher, but it's hard to put them above characters like that. I maybe put Law and Kid down a little bit. Uta's probably better than these characters, honestly. Probably about there. Shanks, he probably needs to be bumped down. I just don't use Shanks all that much, which is unfortunate because I do think Shanks is really good, but he's just really not a character you often see used because the debuff immunity really hurts his team build. If that effect that he had bypassed immunity, whew, dude, he'd probably be one of the best legends in the game, honestly, but I can understand why they didn't do it, but man, if he had it, whew, he would be legitimately top 5, I think. Moving on past that, you got Queen. Queen's still good. I use Queen a little bit as well. Works well with the cerebral stuff and his driven focus, so you can use him with the latest batch releases. Momo, Kaido, Alba, like all these units are still good. I don't really see an issue in changing much of this at all. People could argue the fact that Enma Zora was higher. People could argue that Zora and Sanji are higher, but I do feel like these 6 are pretty much like the best 6 units in the game, at least currently. People don't agree with me on the Uta front, but it's the fact that, like, when I say Uta, I do mean not only this Uta, but the 6-star one, Cerebral Striker, the other one, Driven Powerhouse, and this one, Cerebral Shooter. You know, basically combining all of them into one unit. The value you get out of this unit is phenomenal. This unit is amazing. Absolutely love this unit. So I feel pretty comfortable in at least the current listings, but I guess now we can start talking about some of these new characters. So the first new character we're going to have a look at is Boa Hancock, obviously being cerebral and free spirit focused. Her captain ability really didn't have a lot to offer, but her super class and her special ability is actually really nice. So it removes despair, allows you to overheal and inflicts love status, and then her special, removing pain, which was the first character in the game to specifically remove that debuff. She does delay through immunity, which is nice. Petrify all enemies that have the love status, or it will inflict love status. And then the tap timing chain and chain boundary, but if you already have a chain boundary, you get an attack boost instead. Wish it was 3 turns of these buffs instead of 2 turns, but the fact that it lasts for 2 turns, you can just, you know, run other characters to extend the duration of that buff. And then she does have a super tandem, which is actually really good because even at level 1, you only need 1 character to trigger it. One of them potentially being a Luffy or a Rayleigh or one of the other, you know, Amazon Lily focused characters. But at the level 5, giving you the 1.75 attack boost, which is pretty mid, but then a 2.25 delayed conditional boost. It is annoying that the conditional boost is in the super tandem, but I think overall, Boa Hancock is a solid unit, but it's just the issue, I don't really see her being used in a lot of content, which is, I think, her main issue is, like, I don't think there's a lot of content out there where, like, Boa is the best character for it. She's kind of like a good supporter style unit. The fact that the super tandem is very easily activatable is good. She is Psy Cerebral Free Spirit, so she synergizes well with a lot of the best characters in the game, so that's already a huge positive. So I think for all of these reasons, she's probably like middle of the road, like a tier 2 character. Looking at this list of characters here, I would probably rank her probably better than Bonnie, honestly. Probably more useful than Luffy. Luffy does have good utility though. Boa doesn't have a lot of utility. So I'd probably rank her around this tier right here. She's not going to see that much play, but I think she's a pretty okay character. Silver's Rayleigh is the next one on the list, and I think they did a really good job with his super evolution. Not only did they alter his class from being Cerebral Fighter into a slasher character, they made his captain ability also boost slasher characters as well, so that's interesting. Up to a 5.75 attack boost as a captain when you use that special. 10 turn attack down removal, hello? Like, super evolutions don't just get utility like that when they super evolve, but this guy did, so that's amazing. They didn't give him a super class or a super type, so that's disappointing. But his special ability is really good now, as it now allows you to use one other special alongside his special being launched. Previous to this, you could only use Rayleigh's special during that turn, and that was it. But now they've made it so you can at least use one other special alongside him. And his special is good, removing paralysis, and if you use him as a captain, you're already removing attack down, so you're removing a lot of different debuffs with this guy by himself. Also getting a full board of slots, getting a massive attack boost, massive orb boost, and then the big thing, Fighter and Cerebral characters ignore damage reducing effects with their normal attacks. So it basically makes it so like you have a carrot captain when you launch the special for one turn. Now, it is cool that he does this, but it is unfortunate that he only does it for Fighter and Cerebrals and not also Slashers, because, you know, basically everything in his kit gives buffs to Fighters, Cerebrals, and Slashers, but for some reason, this effect only works for Cerebral and Fighters, so that's a bit disappointing. The final tap bonus is only for Slashers, so you do get something at least, but I just feel like it's a very, very weird thing that Slashers were not included in this kit. But I think overall, they've done a very good job with his 6+. I'm a big fan of it, and due to the uniqueness of this guy, he will consistently see play in treasure maps moving forward. You know, if there's a bunch of defensive effects on a treasure map boss fight, you can just launch a Rayleigh special, get a full board of slots, bunch of buffs, and then you can even still use one other special if you need to. There's just going to be lots of use cases now because you can launch more than one special alongside him. So I think Rayleigh, honestly, is pretty close to a tier 1 legend. I think he is probably in this caliber now, just due to his amount of gimmick removal, amazing special, and you can use him in so many different teams, even if like your whole team isn't even focused on buffing like Slashers, Cerebrals, Fighters, or whatever. Just chucking him on a team, full board of slots, buffs to Cerebral Fighter characters, and making their normal attacks go through defensive effects. Even if you got only a couple of characters that are affected by this, that can be all you need to get through a specific stage with a bunch of defensive effects. So for that reason, I think he's a really, really solid unit. The new Marshall D. Teach Blackbeard arrived as the new global anniversary character, and this guy is interesting. So he's strength-driven powerhouse, and his captain ability being able to make your normal attacks go through defensive effects, so kind of like Carrot as a captain, and he's focused on boosting powerhouse and driven, but if you have these classes, Fighter, Shooter, Slasher, and Striker on your crew, you get the 5.75 times attack instead of the 5 times. So not only do you want to build for Driven and Powerhouse, but you also want to have one of each of these classes on your crew to get the bigger attack boost. So team building can be a bit of a struggle. He does give you a decent HP pool, more matching slots, and anytime you activate a special that provides Threshold on your side of the field, you actually get a 2.25 times increased damage taken conditional boost instead. So you can use this in your own favor to really abuse his special, which does increase damage taken obviously, and get massive damage because of it. But this whole gimmick of this batch is you get better buffs if the enemy has 6 or more turns of Rainbow and Threshold, so that's really interesting. And if they do have this effect, then when you launch his special, he gives 2.25 increased damage taken that goes through immunity. So this is a very incredible part of his special, and then he has different effects depending on what slots your crew has. So if you have 5 or more of these slots, then you get a 3 times orb boost for 3 turns, which is very good, by the way. And the orb boost cannot be removed from, enemies or your own effects, which is strong. But then he says, if your crew has 5 or more characters with block, psi, or int slots, you change all slots into empty, increase the effectiveness of empty slots to 2.25 for 3 turns, so empty slots become like better than matching slots. And then you get the 3 times orb boost, but it's only for 1 turn instead. But it does say that if none of these orb conditions are fulfilled, you still get an orb boost for 1 turn, and you still get increased damage taken on the enemy for 1 turn, though it doesn't go through full immunity. So the best case scenario for damage is to realistically have one of these slots. You get the orb boost for 3 turns. It does buff attack boost as well, which is really interesting. So ideally you use Jesus Burgess special, and then you use the Blackbeard special to get the best possible damage. And then of course if you have you know, these other slots, you can change them into empty and get the better multiplier because of them. It's really weird, but his super class is very interesting. He inflicts the damage reduction for 6 turns on the opponent so that the rest of the Blackbeard batch have their specials buffed to their better forms. And then you also remove 6 turns of defense, which helps with what Blackbeard aims to do, because bypassing defensive effects doesn't bypass the blue shield. This removes blue shield by 6 turns. And then the superclass effects for Driven is actually a 1.5 times boost for 1 turn. Normally it's 1.25 when you activate superclass, or a 1.2 bonus. So this is actually really strong. It just get more damage for that 1 turn effect. And he has a good support too. And he has a super tandem, which is just mid in my opinion. It just, you know, 2.5 times attack boost to Driven and Powerhouse, and you buff all boosts, so it's kind of whatever. Blackbeard is a strong unit, but he's very annoying to team build for. So if you do build a good team for him and you can plan your team right, I think Blackbeard does have potential to be a tier 0 character. Is he a tier 0 character though? Because like Nami Karina, you could probably make the argument is a tier 0 character, and I kind of want to put Blackbeard like very close to that tier. The way that I have been aiming to use Blackbeard right now, like I've been like recording a couple of clips in the background trying to get like a showcase prep for this guy, and I will say he is very annoying to team build for, because if you're trying to build for, you know, to get his super class, like yes, you can just have one of his Blackbeard characters on the crew, but the Blackbeard pirates. But if you're building for the other condition where everyone on your crew needs to have the provoked attack effect, that is also very frustrating. And just having to have not only boosting Powerhouse Driven, but Fighter Slasher Shooter Striker on your crew to get the better attack boost. It's a nightmare to build for. But if you do build a team for him and it works, like it's satisfying to use this guy. And bypassing defensive effects makes it easier to team build because you don't have to worry about Rainbow Shield, Threshold barriers, etc. So he's a cool character, but we'll see how useful he's going to be as the months progress. And then the counterpart to Blackbeard's release was Jesus Burgess, who is fighter driven, also strength unit. His captain ability is interesting, but they decided to give him utility, but it's a weird piece of utility because you need to have a strength, a tandem, or an empty slot, and then you have to tap with him, and then he removes 10 turns of attack down based on your chain, and 1 turn of barrier. I wish that this was just kind of a passive thing where it's like he always removes 10 turns of chain attack chain boundary, and then when you tap with the slot, then he removes 1 turn of barrier. I think that would have been cooler. Just a bit of a weird component with this guy. But it doesn't really make sense that he even has this in the first place, and I'll tell you why. Because this guy has a freaking final tap. Like, he has a final tap, so you want to attack with him last, but you usually want to tap with him first, so you can remove those debuffs that are on the opponent's side of the field or on your side of the field, right? It doesn't really make sense. And by the way, his final tap is absolutely garbage because it just gives him a matching slot and 2000 base attack boost, which is, you know, one of the worst final taps you can have. There are a lot of characters that have it, and it's just not a good final tap at all. We'll admit, very, very good support effect. But his captain effect is very odd. His super type is okay. It removes paralysis and slotbind on himself. Okay. And then you get a base attack boost for 3 turns. Like, that's not terrible, I guess, but it doesn't do much. But his special ability is the highlight. His special is very good, and it's the reason why I think he's going to see a lot of play moving forward. Removing attack down completely is always a good thing. Reduces enemies' Rainbow Shield effect by 100%. So what this means is that for 1 turn, I think it's for 1 turn, or it might be for the duration of the percent damage reduction. If they've got like a percent damage reduction and it's like it reduces 90% of damage, this means that it basically reduces 0 damage. So the enemies will still have their Rainbow Shield buff, but it doesn't actually do anything. It has like a minus effect on it, and it basically makes it nothing. So this is unique. It basically removes all turns of attack down and all turns of Rainbow Shield. That's basically what it means. It also gives a full board of strength slots, which is good with the Blackbeard. And then if the enemy has Rainbow Shield or Threshold with 6 or more turns on it, then you get a strength-driven fighter 3 times attack boost for 3 turns. That is incredibly strong. And also, the attack boost cannot be removed by enemies and or by your own effects. And also a 1.6 chain boost for 3 turns, which is very strong. So massive attack boost, massive chain boost, full board of strength slots. And then if you don't have these buffs on the enemy, then you still get a 2.75 attack boost for 2 turns. But basically it removes attack down, Rainbow Shield completely, full board of slots, big attack boost, big chain boost for 3 turns. Like, it's a good special. It's actually very, very good. And as I talked about, very, very good support effect. And his crewmate effect, if you have a driven captain, remove 1 turn of attack down and make strength slots beneficial for driven. So basically makes this perfect if you're running like a mono-driven team. Very, very good effects all here. So, as I mentioned, there are lots of components with Burgess that I don't like, but his special is so good that you have to respect what this character is trying to do. Now, I don't think he's a tier 1 character. I don't think he's that level. I think he is definitely a tier 2, and I do think that he's going to see more play than Boa Hancock. I think he might be around like Tesoro level, because Tesoro, who's also driven by the way, he's just a good character you can put in a bunch of teams and you get massive benefits because of it. I do think Tesoro is a little bit better in a way because you can put him, no matter what class or color your team is, Tesoro is always going to provide a benefit. But Burgess only really helps if you're running a strength-driven, fighter-focused team. Otherwise, probably not the best idea. So, Burgess is good, but he's gonna be played a lot as a sub because that's a very powerful special that he has. The final character that we'll talk about here is the latest release for Pirate Rumble, S. Hawk. I really wish that I could actually pull this guy. This guy is... he's good in Rumble, but I don't think he's that good in normal content. We'll talk about it. So, this guy is an int slasher driven. His captain ability is whatever, but the main component is it does remove silence or special bind and paralysis completely on himself. So, very similar to Alba. And his special is also pretty good, as it removes paralysis and special bind by 6 turns. If you use him as a captain, you don't have to worry about being special binded because he removes it, unless if you're despaired and then you're inflicted with special bind. Then you got a bit of an issue. And then he does 0.5 damage dealt in the previous turn in type as damage to all enemies. So this is very similar to version 1 Mihawk. So you do like 1,000,000 damage in normal taps, and then in your next turn you use his special and you do like 500,000 damage to all enemies. But of course that scales up because damage is really crazy nowadays. You could do like 100 million damage and then his special does 50 million damage to all enemies. Like, that's crazy, right? You can do that. And then it does that. It also increases the tap timing chain of driven slashes by 0.6 for every perfect for 1 turn. And then you get a final tap bonus for slasher-driven characters, that's whatever. And then if you have activated the special of a Mihawk or a Daz Bones, Mr. 1, then when you launch this guy's special, you get a crit damage bonus for 50% for 1 turn. I would say ignore this component because you're basically never going to see it unless if they release a new Mihawk or Mr. 1 coming up shortly that synergizes with this guy. Mostly probably not the case though. No real support to speak of, but we're not going to talk about him in Rumble because it's not a Rumble video, but his Rumble kit is insane and I have seen some clips so far of people pulling this guy, maxing him out and using him. This guy might be one of the best Rumble legends, if not the best Rumble legend in the game. He's absurd, but in terms of in normal content, he unfortunately is not that great. He could see some play because of the paralysis and the special bind removal. He does have the crewmate abilities to actually remove the paralysis and special bind on himself, so you can use his special to remove special bind on the rest of your crew. I think that's actually really neat, but I just don't think his special is really that good because you're basically only using him for that debuff removal. He does give you a bit of tap timing chain. He does do that damage bonus effect, but it's like kind of whatever because normal attacks only is so prevalent, it doesn't really matter. So I think that he's probably like a tier 3 legend, honestly. Like, he's whatever. Like, you're just not using him in normal content most likely, but in Rumble, as I said, one of the best, if not the best, Rumble legend in the game because of the pure damage that he can do to the enemy. But that's pretty much where we leave it right now. So we haven't really got a lot to talk about here. Like, there's new characters, we talked a little bit about them, but I don't think any of them are that noteworthy to speak of. Like, there were a couple good units that they released this month. Like, I think Blackbeard has potential, but I don't think we've really, grasped how good he is yet. I think V3 Rayleigh is like a super solid super evolution. Very happy about that because V3 Rayleigh, even on release, everyone said he needed a 6+ because there just weren't too many cases where he was useful. Now he's probably going to see quite a lot of play. It's just a very, very good unit. So I'm happy about what they've done with him. And then, like, Blackbeard, he has a lot of upside, but he's very tricky to use. So we'll see what happens moving forward. And of course, we do have more, or we're thinking there's going to be more characters releasing with the global anniversary. Hopefully that is the case. A lot of people predicting that Cross Guild is going to be coming out. If that's the case, I'm going to be super excited about that. But we'll have to wait and see exactly what they have planned. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. And if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.